Welcome into another edition of New Track Record Podcast. Caleb Hatch, Justin Kinney with you from the WELT studios. And just kidding. Scott Dixon gets it done at Mid-Ohio in the Honda 200. We should have known. Dixon's best track. He gets it done. Gets another Mid-Ohio win, I believe his 7th in his career at that track. And Alex Pallot's mistake is a gift to Scott Dixon. We'll recap it. We'll talk about Iowa coming up this weekend, the doubleheader. Sukup replacing Hy-Vee as the title sponsor, and let's just hope we can get butts in seats, right? Does not look good.
It does not look good. It does not look good.
But then again, why would you want to go unless you're close because of the racing last year? So we'll kind of discuss things IndyCar has done and our thoughts if it will be any better. But first off, hello, Justin.
Hello, Caleb. How are we doing?
Doing well.
We are in the midst of the busiest part of the season for IndyCar. We're feeling refreshed, though. Maybe not as much the teams as they get ready for two, we hope, fun, interesting races, but it's not looking good. And we'll get into it here throughout the podcast.
I'm always excited for oval races, and I feel excited for this, but I also feel like I'm going to be let down by it.
The stars are aligning to not be a good weekend for IndyCar. At least last year, with the processional races we had, there were butts in the seats.
Yes.
Now, it looks like we could have two processional races with pretty much nobody in the seats.
Yes, and that's... Unfortunately, it feels like a do-or-die weekend for Iowa. But, hey, let's talk about an event that is thriving.
Yeah.
Mid-Ohio, record crowd. I didn't see any numbers released, but they did say, apparently on the PA, it was a record crowd at Mid-Ohio. I'm not sure if it was for the July 4th weekend date specifically or just overall. IndyCar's raced there a long time. But great crowd on hand, as always, at Mid-Ohio. It's a great event. If you haven't been, we've both been before.
Yep.
Highly recommend going. It's and maybe I think there's, and we'll talk about this more with Iowa, but IndyCar does a great job of getting fans to road and street courses, and it's not just bringing, more series to a track. I think it's the atmosphere. I think it's more laid back with, kids and things like
camping
that. So
and,
camping,
sitting under a chair and a lawn chair.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of factors that could help, and maybe this needs to be more of a mindset. Think about the one oval that obviously has great attendance, the infield, right? I mean, they have viewing mounds. They allow, that kind of style of attendance at the Indy 500, and maybe is that a formula that other ovals need to employ? I get that they don't all have that kind of space,
right? Are you saying every oval needs to have a snake pit?
I'm not saying a snake pit, but I'm saying, do they need a space where it's, families with kids can kind of run around and you can bring your camping chair or your blanket or whatever. They used to have that, so to speak, in Phoenix, but on, Rattlesnake Hill or whatever.
Right, outside
but
the
that
track,
was, that was not a paid admittance thing. So is that model maybe key to helping ovals kind of get back on track with IndyCar? I don't know. Something to discuss later on. But let's talk Mid-Ohio because it's thriving. And it had an interesting start, a kind of meh middle, and a very interesting end as Scott Dixon gets career win number 59. Now he's just 8 away from tying A.J. Foyt. Would you ever have believed that Scott Dixon would be this close? I certainly did not.
Well, the way he has been so consistent, with 21 straight seasons now with a victory.
Yes.
It's all about longevity. You have to have excellence and longevity. And Scott Dixon has had both for a considerable amount of time now, 2+ decades. And for him to be able to do this, and his style, including starting to conserve fuel on the pace laps, a lot of times it doesn't end up working out, but when it does, you're wondering why other drivers don't do it. But the way he was able to win this race, got some help obviously from Alex Pallot's mistake, but he was there when he needed to be, and made the two-stopper work. Remember when they said they were adding 10 laps to the race so it would be a straight up 3-stopper?
They tried to Dixon proof it, and it didn't
work. And that's maybe a conversation for another time. It's like, not just Dixon, but it's impossible to take out fuel mileage in any race, right? Circumstances are going to dictate at some point, majority of races, somebody's going to try something. And with Scott Dixon starting 9th, the two-stopper made it work, had just enough caution, 2 cautions for a total of 8 laps, was just enough for Scott Dixon to make the two-stopper work, and he gets the dub. Just a very impressive performance out of Scott Dixon, very impressive performance, even in a runner-up finish for Alex Palou, and some good runners as well. Christian Lundgaard, I thought, was very impressive as well. So a lot to get to. Would you say your number one is Scott Dixon?
Yeah, I think definitely my number one is Scott Dixon in this performance, because this is the typical Scott Dixon win where he rides around and does the strategy game, makes it work. And yes, other people were able to make it work because of the amount of caution laps. It was just enough. But I also think what's so impressive is he was able to hold off Palou after making the pass, right? That was not a done deal.
Correct.
I mean, Dixon was still in a fuel save.
Yeah, he didn't pass him and drive away.
Yeah, no, this was, okay, Dixon got the lead. He never checked out. Palou tried to chase him down, couldn't quite do it. And props to Scott Dixon. I mean, this is his best track, obviously, as we've mentioned, in terms of results. And for what he's been able to do year after year, again, 21 straight years with the win, my first takeaway, obviously, is that Scott Dixon is still the GOAT. He's still the master, and we get to enjoy it season in and season out. And I think these kind of wins just show how good of a driver he is.
Absolutely. And the way he's able to do it is, some people say, well, he lately he wins races based on fuel strategy and all that stuff. A win is a win, and he's still showing speed, as you mentioned, and talent, being able to hold off Palou for 10 laps after that pass for the lead. So what he was able to do was very impressive. And
5 laps.
5 laps, excuse me, because he led some laps earlier in the race. So for what he was able to do was really very impressive. And just a reminder that Scott Dixon, the best of his generation and one of the best that's ever done it, and being able to get a win at his most successful track. It seemed, in hindsight, inevitable that it was going to happen at some point, that somebody else win a race, and who better than Scott Dixon at his most successful track.
More numbers on Scott Dixon. 23 seasons with a win. We mentioned 21 straight seasons with a win, both records, obviously. And more numbers as well. 7th win at Mid-Ohio, 9 podiums, 2 poles, 15 top 5s, 267 laps led. And we mentioned the consecutive wins that courtesy of Chad Smith and Nathan Brown. And I think the other thing that was really cool about this, and Nathan Brown had a good story, IndyStar.com, Emma Davies Dixon, Scott Dixon's wife, and his family, they had landed in London, and then Scott Dixon basically said, hey, you coming to the race or not? And, decided, hey, actually, let's turn around and go. So she had touched down, not in London, she'd returned from London to Indianapolis around midnight, and Scott Dixon, jokingly called and said, hey, are you coming or what? And then she decided to go. Obviously that worked out. He got the win, and Scott Dixon's youngest kid, Kit, got to see his dad win a race, which I think was the first time and in person.
Despite Kit seemingly having a favorite driver of Pato Award, which we saw a clip of.
Yes.
Or at least asked if Pato could tie his dad for the win. If you haven't seen that clip, it's pretty funny. But yeah, really cool for the fam to be there, and Scott Dixon getting a win. Whether you're a fan of Scott Dixon or not, you can appreciate his excellence, and also the fact that he remains just an affable, likable dude, and For him to win a race for the 21st straight season, it's just one of those constants that you can appreciate and respect in IndyCar. So now that he got his win this year, Alex Palou can just win out now.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right?
we'll see what happens.
Check that box. I guess we're missing a Chevy win or a Penske win or both at this point. But yeah, Alex Palou can just win the rest of them.
But I thought that was a really cool kind of story because outside the Indy 500, she doesn't really like going to the races.
Yeah, she's not a consistent presence at other races.
Which is fine.
Yeah,
I mean,
fine.
some people, it's like too nerve-wracking, and I get that.
Well, Liz Power can always
give her a water bottle.
Loan her a water bottle. Right?
That's right.
When you got a family, you got kids, you get corral them and stuff, and yeah, it's not as easy as young couples where you don't have any kids and stuff like that, and not traveling around the country. It's not the easiest thing. So, but it was cool that the fam was able to be there and appreciate that win in person.
And I forgot a bonus stat. This courtesy of NASCARman_RR on Twitter. Scott Dixon won the first IndyCar race after the release of Driven in 2001. He won the last IndyCar race before the release of Cars in 2006. He won the first IndyCar race after the release of Rush in 2013. And now has won the first IndyCar race after the release of F1, the movie, in 2025. So something
wild.
About blockbusters. Now, I
what
noticed
about
Turbo, right? Literally,
what about
I was just
Turbo?
going to say Turbo. I'm not sure on that one, but I thought that was a funny bonus stat as well.
It's pretty crazy. And who looks that stuff up?
Why not,
Good
right?
job, NASCAR, man.
What's your first takeaway?
Well,
we got to go from positive to negative, right?
Yeah, we got to go. Yeah. That's just what we do on this podcast.
I know exactly where you're going.
And I was going to say Team Penske in general, but let's talk about Scott McLaughlin in particular, because we can talk about Joseph Newgarden and cook the tires, locked up, and crashed on his own, lap one. Will Power has a mechanical, okay? But let's talk about Scott McLaughlin, because he qualifies 21st and just goes nowhere the entire race. Now, the excuse was, as a delaminated tire in the final stint, but it's not like he was running in the top 10 or top 5 prior to that.
No.
He was an absolute non-factor. And so when you look at the struggles for Team Penske, and you can say all the bad luck, and you can say driver error for Joseph Newgarden, bad luck for Will Power, performance-based, Scott McLaughlin didn't do anything in this race. And I think that's the most concerning if you're a Team Penske fan or an employee with Team Penske is you qualified terribly, 18th, 21st, 22nd, all three of them not getting out of Q1. But then Scott McLaughlin not doing anything the entire race, no movement whatsoever up the leaderboard. And it's just a new low, and seemingly we have it with each preceding week. But this was eye-opening for me because it's not like they got taken out or it was a mechanical. It was by merit, on merit, Scott McLaughlin doing nothing in this race, eventually finishing a lap down. Yeah, people mentioned the delaminated tire, but he was a non-factor all weekend, and as was Team Penske. Just like Mid-Ohio was just a new low for this entire team, but the Scott McLaughlin performance or lack thereof was particularly telling for me.
He got a soft serve McDonald's ice cream cone after the race. Maybe that's
Hopefully
the
that made him
boost
feel better.
He needs for Iowa. More numbers because there's a lot of good numbers. Tony DeZeno had these stats. Penske IndyCar slump is as unusual as it is shocking. Team has gone 3 straight races without a top 10 in 4 of the last 5. From 2018 through 2024, only 3 races total without a single Penske top 10. 24 Toronto, 22 Indy 500, and 2020 Gateway Race 1. And then more numbers on that from Nathan Brown. Team Penske now has 5 straight races without a podium. The last time was 2013. Last time they hit 6 straight was 2004. An 11-race winless drought. Last time was 15 races in 2007, 2008. And 10 DNFs, most since 2000, 13 and 40 starts. And then you said you weren't going to touch on Joseph Newgarden. I will, because there are numbers here that are pretty bad, and we talked about this at length, so we don't need to go in depth in terms of his performance on road and street courses. But this is a trend that I think you just simply cannot ignore with Joseph Newgarden either. I know you touched on Scott McLaughlin, but with what he's done, or I guess what he has lacked on some of these tracks, I think is pretty telling. Joseph had 12 finishes outside the top 20 since 2003. From 2017 to 2022, he had just 4. This is a team-wide problem. It's not driver-specific. Yes, it looks pretty bad when Joseph Newgarden is not fighting, but one more bad result, and he actually is fighting for a leader circle spot.
Isn't that amazing?
Like, you look at who's 19th, 20th, and 21st. Joseph Newgarden's 19th with 142 points. Ericsson, 20th, 141. Graham Rahal, 21st with 139. And yes, they have a gap. Louis Foster is in 22nd with 118 points, and you probably feel pretty good about being ahead of a rookie, right?
I mean, he'd have to drop to right now. He's 36 points ahead of the 77 Juncos car.
Yeah.
But it's getting
the fact
closer.
that he's near the cut line, I guess,
Right.
alone, and those 3 drivers being near the cut line is surprising.
Yeah, it's just you got to go back to the infamous late 90s to find the last season in which Team Penske did not have a single win. We're reaching that point. It's gone from, well, when is Penske going to win a race to does Penske win a race?
We've
this
gone
season?
in the last month. We've gone from, okay, there's Gateway and Road America coming up. They'll be fine, right? And both those weekends were disasters. Mid Ohio was a disaster. All 3, and finishing in the 20s. All 3 drivers. To me, it is beyond just driver performance. It's beyond just the attenuator scandal. It's a culture and a team that is simply there's no confidence there.
Zero. And Joseph Newgarden obviously pushing it into turn 1 to the point where when he's interviewed, and kudos to Joseph Newgarden for actually making himself available for an interview, is, well, I don't know what happened. Maybe I got touched. Like, nobody was even close to hitting him. I mean, it's just astounding that I'm not saying he was trying to play the blame game, but he's completely befuddled to why things are happening to the point where, hey, maybe I got touched, which wasn't even close to being touched. So it's just amazing. It's a storyline that won't go away just because Team Penske is the standard in this sport, in this series. And I'm getting to the point, though, where...
Are they?
Well, over the years they are.
Over the years, but I'm saying in recent history, 2020 to present, Chip Ganassi Racing's the standard.
Correct, yeah, but I'm saying, over the decades, is there the standard, both on track and off track in terms how they, the organization, all that stuff. Obviously, there's been a significant amount of on-track and off-track issues of late. But here's my concern, is going into the off-season, you have an ownership group that is Penske. Are they going to be more worried in the off-season about making Team Penske better or improving and not focusing as much on the series as a whole because there is such a lack of performance out of the racing group? And that's maybe my concern is Roger going to be more concerned about his team heading into 2026 than he is the series?
It's a great point, because after this weekend, we have 5 races left after this weekend on the schedule.
And where's Roger's priorities? Where's Team Penske, Penske Corp's priorities? Are they focused on the series at large heading into 2026? Or are they like, man, we got to figure out this race team because it is a disaster right now? I don't. I hope they can do both, but I'm not confident they can. Mm-hmm. Well, at least. So that's my concern. I'm not saying I enjoy watching IndyCar or Penske struggles, but it's an absolutely fascinating storyline. But my concern is the focus in the off season is going to be more on the race team as opposed to the series at large.
It's a great point. Ready for my number 2?
What do you got, number 2?
My number 2 will be the youth movement in IndyCar. Kevin Simpson, best career start, starts P3. Obviously, had that pit stop issue late and slipped back in the running order, still able to salvage a top 10 finish. You look at who else was in the Fast Six. Obviously, Palou on pole. Lundgaard in second, started second. Simpson, I mentioned, started third. Siegel started fourth. Herta fifth. Louis Foster sixth. Yeah, a few names you'd expect to be up there like Palou and Lundgaard and Herta, but overall, we're seeing qualifying this year being the young guys, first or second year guys like Siegel and Simpson and Foster really make an impact. And IndyCar put out this stat: the average age of the top 6 starters, 22.8 years old. And are we, again, I think for so long in IndyCar, it was like, the youth movement, Colton Herta, Pato, they're obviously established stars now, but we're seeing guys get results that I don't think we expected at this juncture.
Well, I think you're seeing some key things with some of these young guys. We've been vocal about Kiffin Simpson, and especially last year, maybe only being in that seat and keeping his seat this year, heading into the year when Ganassi had to downsize due to the charters. Well, he's only in that spot because he brings a lot of money. Well, he's proving that may not exactly be the case. He's putting up some results, and that's really important. He's sitting 15th in points heading into Iowa.
3 out of the last 4 top 10 finishes, 3 out of the last 4 races, including a 5th place at Detroit, where he had the fastest lap. His qualifying is improved.
Right.
His racecraft obviously has. And you look at Nolan Siegel, who, yes, still seems to be boom or bust, but he's stringing together results, make you believe, he can make an impact on track. It's just, can he be consistent? And I think that's key for all of them, right? Foster has speed, but the race pace simply isn't there yet. But as a rookie, that can come around.
And I think the interesting thing for Louis Foster is, yes, he's leading the Rookie of the Year standings now over Robert Schwartzman, but he's only about 20-some points behind Graham Rahal for the best Rahal Letterman Lanigan car. Mm-hmm. And so I think that says a little bit about both Louis Foster and RLL, but you're looking at Foster putting up results and obviously qualifying and being on pole at Road America is where his pole was. So yes, I think you're looking at guys that we didn't think a lot of for a little bit. Kiffin Simpson, Louis Foster has the pedigree through the road to Indy, but you never really know what you're getting, especially as a rookie. But we're seeing signs that, hey, Louis Foster is fast, and if he continues to improve his racecraft, he's going to be a factor and maybe hired away to a bigger team at some point. So it was a really cool weekend, or at least cool qualifying. We mentioned Nolan Siegel too. He was a guy that just a couple weeks ago we were saying, or at least I was saying, I'm not saying his ride seat is in danger, but he needs to start putting up results. And he has, 8th place at Road America, 11th at Mid-Ohio, qualifies in the Fast 6 as well. So we're seeing signs of him. And it makes things interesting overall, seeing some different guys up there. I don't know if we're talking about changing of the guard, so to speak, but we're seeing a promising crop of young drivers that are showing signs that they can be the next group of guys coming up that are going to be race and championship contenders by the end of the decade, you feel?
For sure. What's your second takeaway?
Well, let's talk about Callum Ilott.
Mm-hmm.
Season best finish at Mid-Ohio at 13th. And this was a guy coming out of May and after Detroit that we were like, here was a guy that we expected to be the consistent presence for Prema above Robert Schwartzman, the rookie. And then Schwartzman goes ahead and puts it on pole at Indianapolis and gets all the accolades there. But since Detroit, an 18th, a 15th, and now a 13th for Callum Ilott. He's just 4 points out of the 25th spot, which doesn't sound huge, but he's making headway in terms of, I know Prema's not eligible for the leader circle, but getting out of that leader circle cutoff. I think when we talked about Prema, we expected both of their cars to finish below that cutoff, and he's not very far away from jumping out of that. We expected Prema to be what it was this year in terms of struggles at times, but Callum Ilott was going to be that calming presence. And I think we're starting to see that out of Ilott, which is encouraging because that's what Prema expected to get out of Callum Ilott this season. And at least through the last 3 races, he's proven that. I think he's where you would hope when you look at Prema result, ideally top 20s. Right, Callum Ilott maybe mix some top 15s in there. The last 2 weeks, last 2 races, 15th and 13th. He's headed in the right direction.
For sure. And I guess for my third, I'm going to do kind of a similar thing. A driver who I think has had an outstanding season and still not getting enough attention. I've been beating the drum for him since the preseason. It's Rinus VeeKay. This stat from Beyond the Flag, I think, really stood out to me. Only 6 drivers have more top 10 finishes than Dale Coyne Racing's Rinus VeeKay this season. He's ahead of all 3 Penske drivers in that category. Continuing to get it done. Rinus VeeKay, 3 straight top 10s now. 9th at Mid-Ohio, biggest mover in the race, correct? So
yeah,
he found a way after a bad starting spot, starting in 26th, to improve to 9th. And you look at the point standings, now 13th. He's 3 points ahead of Rossi and several more ahead of Rasmussen. So, that again, tracking that all year long. And he's right there on the doorstep of, a couple good results. He could slip into the top 10. I mean, he's 19 points off of Ferrucci, who's in 10th. So I continue to be impressed by what he's done. Yeah, he had a bad Indy 500 and a bad Detroit, but outside of that, it's been a really impressive season by him in that team.
If he would finish where he is right now in the championship, 13th, it would be the best performance out of a Coyne driver in the series standings since Santino Ferrucci in 2020 also finished in 13th. You have to go the year before to Sebastian Bourdais finishing 11th.
And Bourdais won St. Pete that year, right?
That was the year before,
okay,
when he finished 7th in the championship. So that was the recent heyday for Coyne when you had Bourdais in that seat and you had guys like, Ferrucci was a rookie in 2019. Remember Zach Clayman DeMello in 2018?
Zachary Clayman DeMello, yes. Wow.
He was in the other seat, but that 2018 to 2020, that was the recent heyday for Dale Coyne. And since then, it's been an absolute struggle, right? So for what Rinus VeeKay has brought, and we've been really hammering that, hey, he was the best option, and it was great that it worked out for Dale Coyne to get him. I mean, Rinus VeeKay is doing everything and perhaps more than what Dale Coyne expected with this car. He's not even in the conversation in terms of leader circle. You feel Jacob Abel's a lost cause at this point in terms of at the bottom of the leader circle by a considerable margin. But Rinus VeeKay has done everything asked of him and more. Not just fit 13th in the points, but he's not bringing home banged up race cars when he doesn't finish. You looked at Indianapolis and Detroit, a couple 27th place finishes and some bad luck there, but cutting down on the repair bills is big. And then putting up results, and he's been able to do that. And as you mentioned, 3 straight top 10 finishes for that car and Rinus VeeKay. It's been very, very impressive.
And you go into Iowa and look, short ovals, you either have it or you don't with the car, but he's got great oval prowess. You feel good about that car going in. But again, we've said that about many drivers going into Iowa, and that's the track where if you have a bad car, it is magnified beyond anything what you could imagine. I mean, you're getting lapped, and it's just a disaster of a day.
12 laps. You're getting lapped.
So we'll see, but you feel really good. And I guess the question about him to next year, do you stay at Coyne? Because what seat is going to open up that's better, right?
It sounds like early indication silly season isn't going to be very silly. Now, that's famous last words. You never really know. But it sounds like when you read articles by Nathan Brown in particular, a lot of teams are content with what they have in the paddock right now. There's always going to be some movement, but I don't think you're going to have major movement, barring something crazy. So, yeah, if you're Rinus VeeKay, Dale Coyne obviously wants to continue this going, but for Rinus VeeKay, is he really going to have any better options than what he has right now? And he's done a very admirable, great job with Coyne, and who's to say he even would want to leave because of the relationship he's built with that team.
I mean, Penske's full. Whether there's a swap with Power and Malukas remains to be seen.
I don't think Ganassi does anything.
Ganassi's full. Andretti,
maybe the Ericsson seat.
Yeah, but they'd probably want Dennis Hauger to go in that seat. McLaren's obviously full. So you look at it, maybe a Rahal seat, but
is that a better
working
seat?
with Michael Cannon? Would you want to leave working with Michael Cannon, who's at Coyne? And Coyne's
for now, Cannon could have 3 different jobs between now and next year. But
to me, he's in the best spot. We'll see how it plays out, but he's in the best spot he can be right now. What's your third?
Well, let's talk about Team Daly versus Team Ferrucci. And neither driver backing down since the race on social media and in interviews. And in terms of Ferrucci's aggressiveness, and this is too goes back into practice, blowing by Joseph Newgarden, which was kind of a dangerous move because Ferrucci kind of getting frustrated with people backing off. I get it, but I'm here for it. I'm not necessarily Team Ferrucci, Team Daly. I'm Team Drama. And when you're looking at ways for IndyCar to gain followers and viewers, you have to have some semblance of drama and bickering. And whether it's Will Power going after Alex Palou, or at least confronting him in the pits after practice 2, which I think more shows how much Team Penske is on edge and Will Power. But then going back to Daly and Ferrucci. Ferrucci is incredible for this series because he likes to get under people's skin and he's pretty darn fast. And I'm not saying he's AJ Foyt in terms of ability, but he has AJ Foyt attributes in that respect. And I'm here for it. I think the series needs more of that. The fact that majority of everybody's all chummy is nice, but it doesn't lend yourself to getting a lot of people interested when it comes to drama or lack thereof. And quite frankly, I hope it continues. I don't want guys putting each other into the wall, but at the same time, this series could use an infusion of hashtag Indy rivals. And I'm here for Daly versus Ferrucci at this point.
Yeah, I am as well, and we'll get to a tweet about tweets in the week, but it was interesting what Ferrucci had to say about Connor Daly going into Iowa, saying, I know how to outsmart him on an oval. I've done it before. So there are already shots fired going into Iowa weekend, where I think both Foyt cars will be really strong, but also this is one of Connor Daly's better tracks. He got a pole with Carlin several years ago in a part-time role with them at Iowa. He's had good results. Yeah, it's not Gateway in terms of his best oval track, but or IMS, you could argue. But he's been good at Iowa, and I think it will be fascinating to watch them battle. It's good, and they're very public about their disdain for each other, which I love.
Right? We need more of it.
We need more of it. And I look, not every driver is going to have that kind of personality to do that. Look, that's just not who Scott Dixon is, for example. But the ones that's what they naturally do, just embrace it. And I think Ferrucci's embraced kind of being the black sheep of IndyCar. Yeah, he's got some of his allies, like Will Power, for example, and Connor Daly has lots of allies in IndyCar, kind of being one of the more fan favorite drivers. But I think it's good, and I wish we had more of it. Like you said, this is a start. You wish it was happening with drivers at the top of the running order, though.
Sure, and not in the midfield, but
yeah.
No, but I think it's going to be interesting, particularly with Iowa expected to be a one-lane race and guys getting runs and pushing, maybe not physically contact, but at least pushing guys up into that second line. You're going to quickly lose, 5, 6, 7 spots, at least if you get pushed off that low line. So there's places there that you can be aggressive at Iowa. You're going to have to be aggressive at Iowa, particularly on starts and restarts. And hopefully for our entertainment factor, Ferrucci and Daly find themselves close to each other a lot this weekend.
Any other final thoughts from you on on Mid-Ohio?
No, it just not, Mid-Ohio is just one of those steady, you take for granted events. When you talk about, when we break down the schedule every year when it comes out, Mid-Ohio isn't one that we get excited about, but plenty of people go. It's a solid event on site. It's not the most flashy on TV, and that's reflected in the TV ratings, but it's just when you look at what the core of IndyCar is in the Midwest, and going to places like Road America and Mid-Ohio, and Road America, a bigger event, you could say, but Mid-Ohio,
not by a lot.
True.
I mean, these are two of the 5 best, non-Indy 500 races on the schedule.
Yeah, in terms of
attendance.
You throw
in St. Pete, and you throw in Gateway, you throw in Barber, obviously Mid-Ohio, Road America, Long Beach.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the list right now.
Here's a question for you that I don't really know where I stand, but there was a bit of a pushback online when IndyCar socials when they were profiling and highlighting going into Mid-Ohio, showing Simon Pagenaud's wreck. Do you think that is in bad taste? And if it was even in the intro, kind of showing him, flipping, what is your feeling on that? Should it be something? It's not necessarily highlighted, but should it be ignored? Should it be part of highlights packages? How do you feel about that?
I mean, that was an IndyCar on Fox decision, to be clear. It wasn't an IndyCar. Since it was a career-ending injury, he's okay in terms of, he lived, but It's obviously altered his life. It's hard, right? If you're TV, you're trying to show something flashy to promote. Right. I mean, I think they could have promoted Michael Andretti's flip at Mid-Ohio years ago. That was actually in a race and not a practice session. But I get it. Do I agree with it? Not necessarily. I understand, though, the argument for either side.
Yeah, I guess it's not a point of contention. I get people being put off by it, but I also, me personally,
I get why Fox would use it.
Correct.
I wouldn't use it only because of the ramifications, but the Andretti wreck, for example, their other crashes, I think would be a better choice, but this was more recent. It's going to look better.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
But at the same time, though, it's like Laguna Seca, they're going to show the pass during the race, guaranteed.
Right.
Or during the weekend.
I'm trying to remember when Dario and Takuma Sato got together at Houston, that effectively did end Dario Franchitti's racing career. I mean, did we see that highlight used in?
But they also don't race there.
Was that the last year at Houston?
I think
anyway?
So. There may have been a 2014. I'm not sure.
I'm just trying to remember. My memory is horrible in terms of highlights packages going into the next year. Was Dario getting into the fencing at Houston?
They did race in Houston the following year. Yes.
And I don't know. Maybe they used it as part. I don't know. I think the majority of people watching don't even know the the story of that wreck anyway. But I don't know. I'm kind of like you. I'm apathetic to it. I don't know if I should be outraged, but I'm not, and what that says, I don't know. But
if you're Fox, you have to show it because it's
a dramatic highlight.
Yeah, it's good television.
Flipping,
if you're a hardcore fan, you're probably upset by it because of the ramifications of that crash. So
it was just a sidebar to the weekend that I really couldn't get a read on what side I should be on, and I'm still kind of like that.
I feel the same. I don't like that they showed it, but I also understand why they would show it, and it makes sense. It's TV, right? The visuals are the key, and that's a good visual.
It absolutely.
The result of it wasn't positive, but it's a good visual.
Not at all, but it's a good visual, and it's yeah. But kudos to Mid-Ohio for making the changes to that area, and that was it turn 4 that really caught cars.
Yes.
Really kind of chasing it in that turn all weekend due to the changes and really kind of leveling out. It went from 4 degrees to 2 degrees, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a lot in racing. And so really taking some precautions to maybe avoid that. But when you lose your brakes in the fastest portion of a road or street course, things are going to happen. And unfortunately that happened to Simon Pagenaud, but we got out of Mid-Ohio without anything similar this year, but I think, it was a story worthy of social media. That's how I'll put it.
One other note I want to throw out there: Colton Herta, they had the pit issue, still able to get 4th out of it. I think he rebounded well from that, but once again, Andretti pit miscue, which probably took away a podium finish for him, but 4th, a good bounce back for him. TV rating wasn't great, 775,000 viewers, down from 1.25 million last year, which was on NBC and led into NASCAR at Chicago. So kind of different circumstances there. Look, the TV ratings are the TV ratings. I don't feel like Mid-Ohio or Road America are good TV rating races. I think they're great in person. The crowds show that, and I think that's a bigger conversation that we kind of had at the start of the show with making ovals work. Other numbers, Nathan Brown supplying to us. We were kind of chatting back and forth with our chart on TV numbers, but the non-Indy 500 network average 881,000 last year, which excluded the 500 rain delays or NFL conflicts, 932,833. Last year's network average through Mid-Ohio, with the same stipulations, 945,800. So you're down from that when you exclude the Indy 500 because it's such a big data point.
Right.
And I get that the Indy 500, yes, ratings are up, and that's positive, but it is challenging, and it doesn't feel like we're in a stretch where you're going to have big numbers in terms of TV ratings. The one positive I'll say, IndyCar moving their schedule forward and ending on Labor Day weekend versus ending during NFL season is going to help that finale rating, but I don't know how much it'll help just because it's Labor Day weekend. But it will help. It will help, guaranteed.
Well, it's all going to be about spin because the number is going to be mega at the end of the year in terms of, IndyCar ratings are up X%. Because especially in the second half of the season, last year there were we had the Peacock race, it was Toronto, right? You had USA races. You had a couple races that were pushed to CNBC because of conflicts and rain. But when you start delving deeper into the data, of which we did way too much this week, it's disconcerting. And this was a tweet that we put out earlier this week. And if you compare apples to apples, Fox has had 8 IndyCar events this year that were on NBC last year. And that's including the Indy 500 and last row qualifying / pole day. 5 of those 8 had higher ratings last year on NBC than this year on Fox. Thermal, the Indy GP, the 500 pole last row shootout broadcast, Road America, and now Mid-Ohio. 5 of the 8. So this isn't a blame game, blaming Fox, blaming IndyCar. This is just factual that when you start drilling down the numbers, the move to Fox and the anticipated boost in ratings has not been there. Now, it will be because all the races are on Fox. But when we get to the end of the season and all these PR stories are put out in terms of how much ratings are up for IndyCar, it's going to be based on 2 things. The great Indy 500 number and the fact that all races are on network.
No cable or Peacock races. And that will be boosted quite a bit the second half of the season because remember, they had Toronto on Peacock and then Milwaukee won on Peacock last year. So that goes really far in boosting. I don't even think we got Peacock numbers from either of those.
No, I think I saw some when I was doing research this week, some estimated numbers of like 40, 50,000 people. Yeah. But you talk about one of the Iowa races last year that was moved to CNBC that got 70,000 people watching. You had
2 CNBC races last year because of news stories.
I think Laguna Seca was the other one, maybe.
I think so.
So, yes, the number when they put it out at the end of the year is going to look eye-popping. Wow, it's up X% and 100 this, but we haven't seen the anticipated jump that we expected on Fox, and maybe that's unfair to IndyCar and Fox in terms of our expectations. I thought we tempered our expectations a little better than most, but even it's going to be difficult to even meet our expectations this year. But that's just something to keep in mind. It was a definite talking point this week and going forward is just what these ratings mean this season compared to last year.
All in all, they'll be up, and hopefully they're up closer to the 40 to 50% and not the 25 to 33%, which is what we're anticipating. But we'll see going forward because the Indy 500 did get such a massive number. And to be fair, that is the straw that stirs the drink. And the Indy 500 having a massive number, St. Pete having a massive number, they'll make some tweaks. I think the bigger conversation is IndyCar doesn't have big events the second half of the season compared to the first half in terms of their big events on the schedule. And we've talked about this, and we don't need to go a deep dive here, but I mean, Toronto's okay, Laguna's okay, Portland always feels like it's on the chopping block. Milwaukee, hopefully that can grow in year 2 of its return. Iowa, at this rate, may not even be on the schedule next year. So what can they add in the second half of the season to build momentum? Because there's so many big events the first half of the season. Then you get to Mid-Ohio, and then it just kind of feels like there's a drop-off currently.
I mentioned it to you, the focus of so many people on filling those gaps at the front end of the schedule. I think there's too much attention put on the front end of the schedule and not enough attention on the back end in terms of finding quality events. Because remember, okay, you add Arlington next year. That's at the front of the schedule. Mm-hmm. You talk about Mexico City being added. That's going to be at the front of the schedule. After you get past Road America, and that's all due respect to Mid-Ohio, there's just no events.
I would add Mid-Ohio in there. It's become a staple that weekend.
But I think in terms of high-profile events on television that you can highlight. I mean, you look at the front end, you got St. Pete, obviously. You have Long Beach. You have I would say Barber as an event. I say, obviously, Indy. And, Gateway, I think, is at least right now your second most successful oval right now. And then you get into July, and let's say post Mid-Ohio, there's not a lot of events. I mean, Toronto is your least best street race, and always seems, as you mentioned, to be kind of on
I would put Toronto ahead of Detroit.
You would?
Yes.
Okay.
I would.
I mean, that's fine. But, then it's just you're kind of limping to the finish line, right? I mean, Laguna Seca, nobody goes. Portland, nobody wants to go for whatever reason. I mean, Milwaukee is fledgling. They're trying. We'll see what happens there. Nashville Super Speedway, yeah, it was a great year one. Can they repeat it in year two? We'll see. But
at least they had a good race to sell.
True.
I thought it was a good race.
Yeah, unlike Iowa. But, you just lack that. Oh, at this point of the season, what race are you looking forward to?
And maybe this is highlighting where IndyCar needs an East Coast race, is in this stretch in July or August.
And yeah, I feel like, yes, there are problems with the schedule, and so many people focus on the breaks in the early part of the season. I'm starting to really come around to the fact that you need some bangers on the back end of the schedule, because you're very much limping to the finish line, it feels.
Milwaukee, Nashville feels good, but yeah, going Toronto, which is a established event, to Laguna Seca, which the crowds seem hit or miss. Portland, the crowds have dwindled since the return. Thankfully, you have Milwaukee and Nashville to kind of regroup. But yes, that again, this is where you need that East Coast race. I think this is the missing piece here, is you need that East Coast race in July or August. And look, they may take the place of Iowa next year. We'll see what happens, but that'll come down to how this weekend goes. All right, if you agree or disagree with us, we'd love for you to interact with us. You can always find us on socials, IndyCar Podcast, the handle on Twitter /X, also on Instagram, on Facebook, search for New Track Record. You can always email us your questions, comments, concerns, rants, newtrackrecordpodcast@gmail.com. Support us via Patreon, patreon.com/newtrackrecord. Thanks to Xavier and others for their support. And as always, download and listen on your favorite podcasting platform, whether that is Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Mailbag, going to be a bit abbreviated because we had so many replies on your tweet talking about Iowa Speedway. So we'll just talk about this to start. That's getting a lot of attention, obviously. You said, hey, Iowa Speedway, tagging their account. Just want to make sure the gates are going to be open for IndyCar this weekend. Based on your socials, you're just a NASCAR track now, or at least that's all you promote. Just want to make sure before people start showing up. Thanks. Okay, two things. One, yes, this is an IndyCar track rental. So NASCAR is not really required to do anything, and they haven't for several years since IndyCar came back post-2020. So that is true. However, the NASCAR Cup race is sold out. It's been sold out since, mid-June or something?
Yeah.
So there's really nothing to promote on that end unless you're promoting like premium ticket options like suites, which I assume when they say sold out, they're talking grandstand tickets.
Yeah.
So maybe they're suite options and just the occasional awareness reminder, hey, the Cup race is 30 days away or whatever, which they posted that. But beyond that, if you're NASCAR, do you not want IndyCar to keep doing track rentals at your facilities? Because that's the vibe. right? And you would think that NASCAR would want that because it's a paycheck for them.
Yeah.
It's an event at a facility you own. I understand that that's not how the contracts work, and numerous people pointed this out in the replies. But isn't it best for everyone to work together? And I guess this is the thing that I think IndyCar has never learned the lesson, is they got duped. Tony George got duped by ISC years ago, right, with all the ovals, and then NASCAR rolled those back. Part of that was the recession, right, and that really hurt NASCAR in terms of fans being able to buy tickets, and NASCAR had to downsize tracks and had to lower ticket prices, and those season ticket packages, which sold out all the ovals, gave IndyCar great crowds at ovals, went away. And this is kind of where we're at, but man, you just would think they'd want to work together.
There's so many different layers to this, and the tweet
this
really
is a
took
15 to 20 year problem.
Yeah, the tweet really took off. I mean, even Scott McLaughlin liked it, so even the drivers are kind of feeling similar. I know it's not Iowa Speedway, like you mentioned, job to promote the event. I get it.
But it's in their best interest to ensure a good crowd so IndyCar keeps coming back with the track rental.
If you look at NASCAR's side of things, well, we don't want a lot of people going to the IndyCar race at Iowa because it could be a better show than what NASCAR puts on 3 weeks later. But to your point, it's sold out anyway. The Cup race is sold out, so why wouldn't you at least, and we're talking bare minimum effort, like retweet some things, put something on your Facebook. There is nothing.
There's nothing on their socials.
Nothing on socials.
There's nothing on their website. And again, this is probably how the deal was drawn up. I just think it's silly from a motorsports perspective, marketing perspective, promotion perspective. This is how it's set up.
And you look at IndyCar and say, you couldn't at least put some provisions in this deal that say, hey, you're at least going to help us. When we put stuff out there, you can retweet it, or you can post that there's an actual race coming up at Iowa Speedway.
These are things in contracts. You have a social, in terms of social media, that's part of contracts for races. Like you get X number of posts, you say you retweet whatever posts about this event,
exactly. This is,
etc.
And this is stuff that I have experience in. I was a social media director for a newspaper and then a business, and this is how contracts work when you boost when you go into marketing and promotions is, okay, this is how many Facebook posts there's going to be. This is our target audience. This is how many impressions we're looking to get. This is when you should be posting. Like all this stuff is planned out. And you wonder what the marketing and promotions department for IndyCar is doing if it's not making sure these provisions are in at tracks that they rent. And maybe conversely, maybe IndyCar tried and Iowa Speedway was like, nah, but that just doesn't make any sense either. I mean, Iowa Speedway is still banking, what do you think? It's a $7 million, a seven-figure dollar check. I mean, $1 million to rent this thing.
I'm sure it's at least $1 million.
They're making money off concessions.
I would think they'd get a cut of concessions or parking or something, right? I mean, ticket sales are obviously going to go straight to IndyCar since it's a track rental.
Right.
But yes, like you said, you can't just rely on the, as they say in some industries, the unique and organic content to get there. You need some actual, boosted posts, so to speak, to get there. And that's just not there.
The easiest, and even in my current job, the easiest and cheapest form of marketing and promotion, in my opinion, is Facebook boosts. Everybody has Facebook, and you can direct those in a geographical area to a different demographics in terms of age, in terms of education, all that stuff. You can really drill down deep. And there's just nothing like that, at least through Iowa Speedway. And that's why it's feeling more and more like a lame duck event. And that's not to even mention the fact of the repave at just one lane. And the word bamboozled was thrown around within IndyCar about basically, now I don't think Iowa owes IndyCar any consultation, but at the same time, just doing it without any thought of how it's going to ruin effectively the IndyCar product. But It's just over, like you mentioned, it's a 15, 20-year problem because this is the NASCARification of another track on the IndyCar schedule.
Which was, again, built by Rusty Wallace. The problem is the business model for these tracks is, okay, we start off with an IndyCar race, and then we build that, make it successful, and then that gets us a cup date, and then we throw IndyCar to the side.
Which
we've seen this happen. Now, Gateway stuck around. It feels like this year was a positive step in a good direction after it had been trending downward for several years.
But, even going back to Pocono, years and years ago, when that was an IndyCar staples built for open wheel racing, NASCAR comes, they start going to Pocono, they go once, then they go twice, then all of a sudden, yes, you have the incidents with IndyCar there, but I think it's more being pushed out by NASCAR being the primary. And look, we both understand why. I mean, you host a NASCAR race and you're set for the year effectively with the TV money that you get. What is it, a $20, $30 million check that they're handed?
Somewhere
crazy?
In that range.
Before you even sell a ticket. I get it. But these are the issues that IndyCar is presented because every track in the United States wants to host NASCAR because of the money that is involved. And it's a struggle for IndyCar, particularly with ovals that are needed for this series, because all the ovals either are hosting or want to host Cup. And once they get a Cup date, IndyCar is on the back burner. For good reason. I get it, because of money. It's just so incredibly frustrating. And you threw it out there. Like, does Roger Penske need to start buying ovals?
I mean, if IndyCar wants more ovals, yes. I look, they own IMS. They own Long Beach, which is a street race.
I mean, do they need to go to SMI and be like, hey, what kind of deal can we, not necessarily buying out SMI, but what kind of partnership can we come up with to where we can race at Kentucky and you're already at Nashville, New Hampshire, get that Northeast race. Texas is owned by SMI. Can you somehow get back there?
Well, remember for a while they just kept gutting all the ISC tracks as it was then known. Now it's just owned by NASCAR,
right?
On the schedule and replacing them or keeping the SMI owned facilities. And look, Nashville's owned by SMI, right?
Correct.
Nashville Super Speedway.
Yep.
Iowa's obviously owned by NASCAR. Gateway is not owned by either entity.
No, it's independent. Same with
Pocono is also independent.
Yep.
Milwaukee obviously is owned by
independent
state of Wisconsin.
Correct.
Right? So
not
that's the model where IndyCar has ovals where they can feel good about their future.
Well, and for a long time, Iowa was not owned.
Correct.
And now it's been assimilated after, being very close to being shuttered or was shuttered, but was rescued. And now it's like you said, it's not a 2025 problem. It's the last 20 years problem. And when IndyCar is so desperate to find ovals that make sense for it, it's very, very frustrating when you run into these things because we've seen it time and again. And we've never been closer, I think, for the Iowa just completely going away because of the situation.
Well, it did go away, and it came back, but
True,
now it's probably going to go away again.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because everybody wants to remember when it first got on the schedule, it was filling up seats and it was entertaining and all that stuff. Unfortunately, and drivers have said it. Nathan Brown of the Indy Stars had a series of articles this week that have been tremendous in the depressing state of the paddock going to Iowa because of what it used to be, and that's just the nature of the business. And you wonder, when your owner is a billionaire, what it's going to take for him to really start shelling money out. We talk, like we said, it's easier when it's not our money, but you kind of look at if this series is serious about having a substantial amount of ovals in the schedule, when does IndyCar and Penske get aggressive financially to put some of these ovals on the track?
We're seeing NASCAR do it, reviving ovals. You know?
You look at places like
Rockingham, right?
North Wilkesboro.
Yeah, North Wilkesboro. So that's another factor in all this.
Absolutely. It's a deeper issue than just Iowa, but it's the most recent and most depressing, because we all remember great racing at Iowa. Last year stunk. All indications are this year's going to stink. And the difference between last year and this year is going to be there's a lot less people there to see a couple stinky races, which you have a couple of those races and it's easy to not go. And that, coupled with the lack of big musical acts, could be, and maybe the two things we point to as killing Iowa IndyCar at Iowa.
And another factor as we get to some mailbag entries is from Kurt Wieland. Said, ticket prices are still too high. I can take my two boys to Road America for free, 16 and under. Paid $95 for my ticket. Road America, I can sit anywhere, bring my own food and drinks, and have access to the paddock. Iowa doesn't appear to have kids pricing, no paddock access, no carry-ins. He said, it sucks as an Iowan. I love to support my home track, but I'm going to Road America 100% of the time. I'd even argue the 5-hour drive to the Indy 500 is a better option than a 3-hour drive to Iowa. And then this from Tyler Allen said, am I reading it right? The Iowa Speedway IndyCar tickets are double what I pay for the Indy 500, $250 per seat. LOL, okay. And look, I get it's two races, but yes, they said they would reduce ticket prices, but I just don't know if enough has been done.
Well, and that's an IndyCar thing, right?
Yes.
They're setting the pricing because they're running the event. So that's a lack of really knowing your audience. I mean, is IndyCar just, we're just screw it. We're just going to charge what we need to charge, knowing that we're not going to be back here next year. But you look at right now, multi-day tickets starting at $130 for both races.
Seems a little high. If I'm sitting in the lowest rows,
yes,
I'm not paying more than $50 a ticket.
You can get tickets as low as $70 per race. 70 on Saturday.
See, that still seems too high. Again, if I'm sitting in the lowest 10 rows, tiered pricing.
But I think you can pick anywhere to see it sit there.
Yeah.
So, that's an IndyCar thing. So, yes, we've pointed at Iowa Speedway, and this is why you're the problem. Well, this is why IndyCar is the problem, too. You are charging way too much for that Iowa
without
race.
Offering the concert.
Added. Look, I'm not expecting IndyCar to front them. Maybe I do. Maybe they should front the money for some of these big musical acts. Now that Hy-Vee's gone, maybe they should do that. I don't know, but it goes back to Zach Brown's point year after year when he makes his State of the Series. It has the State of the Series interview, something that by the way, the series should actually do.
Mm-hmm.
Is basically taking some chances and spending money. And the owners of IndyCar have a hell of a lot of money, and the unwillingness to spend and invest to try to increase the profile of the series is probably, for you and I, the most frustrating thing about this ownership. Is they have the ability to spend to try some things, but they won't. And I think here in a couple minutes, we'll talk about Chicago and the street race. And, could that be an IndyCar thing? And there's reasons why that doesn't make sense. And we'll get to them.
Other mailbag entries, Poet Shevchenko said, the Drivers' Championship may in all likelihood be over, but props to Joseph Newgarden for working to make the Leader Circle competition as exciting as possible.
Who would have thought?
Right?
Who would have thought?
This from Grant V Motorsport NZ. I want some crow eating on that Dixon dig. And it is a biased dig. Other people upset about your Dixon dig.
Me? What'd I say?
I don't know. You're always saying something about Dixon.
Am I?
Another one on that was from last week's episode on the grades. Historic hot laps chipping in on the grades as well. Saying, I agree with 99% of your grades. However, Malukas has made some errors along the way this season, but David is beyond what the Penske team is capable of this year. If only one car was struggling of the three, and we had a previous Penske era, I'd agree, but Penske is D- at best now. I mean, we gave them an F, so
yeah,
I think that was deserved.
Fair. We would have given them an F- if it was.
This a follow-up on our random split or driver of the week last week, but Juan Fangio, the uncle, was kidnapped in Cuba by Castro in Cuba before the F1 race there. Dinner with Racers covered that on an episode.
Really?
This from Mom 2X over 2002, Courtney with that. Also recommending Dinner with Racers. I've caught a few episodes, not enough, but I thought that was fascinating. Lynn also with a dig for you, Lynn _IndyCar, said, Caleb, is Justin doing okay with our favorite driver winning at Mid-Ohio? Even if Pelot didn't make the mistake in Dixon finishing second, still a freaking amazing drive. IndyCar tried to Dixon-proof the races, and he still did 2 stops. GOAT.
Well, we mentioned that about
yes
adding the 10 laps. And
still
that
did
work.
not work to try to Dixon-proof, which Mid-Ohio, I forgot to mention this, 8 lead changes, which tied the record at that track as well. Other things to get to, talking about NASCAR Chicago. This is interesting. Snarky Moose, S2000 _Moose said, if NASCAR drops the Chicago street race, what are the odds of IndyCar stepping in to revive it? I would say 0.
0.
But then adds, if that were to happen, should IndyCar partner with IMSA to revive it and move it off the 4th weekend? IMSA is owned by NASCAR, so I doubt that would be easy to pull off.
Probably not going to happen.
They would have to move it off the 4th because I don't think you mess with Mid-Ohio. They got a good thing going there. And then he also had this on the schedule. What's the longest break in the 2026 IndyCar schedule? Over under 3.5 weeks. I will go with the under. I think they'll do 3 weeks. I think they'll pull it off.
Yeah, I think
I think it may require an FS1 race during World Cup time, but I think they will make it work.
Yes. It kind of goes back to is people being so hyper-focused on the breaks between races and not as much focused on spreading out the events on your schedule or adding events, true race events that are going to get people excited to tune in or go in the second half of the season. But we've already discussed that. My thing with Chicago is this. Is NASCAR spent, in a story I read, I think it was on Racer,
$50 million?
$50 million over 3 years to make that race happen. So basically they had to grease the skids with Chicago. Okay. They have to make it worthwhile for Chicago because prior to this race even happening, we said there's too much red tape to jump through to make this street race happen. The amount of capital that NASCAR has had to spend to grease those skids and make sure everybody was happy or at least tolerant of effectively shutting down the Grant Park area for a couple weeks to have this race is a lot of money. Money that IndyCar is not willing to spend. Should it do it? Yes, of course. But it's not our money. It's easy to say. So yes, this would fall exactly in line to what Zach Brown has said is you have to spend a considerable amount of money to try things to see if they work. And in a perfect world, Roger Penske, if Chicago would go away and the city of Chicago is interested in still having a race, of which I openly question, then yeah, Roger Penske would swoop in and say, yeah, we're going to continue this and make this happen. I just don't see that happening because that's not how Roger Penske operates. He doesn't throw around a ton of money.
I would say this, do a track rental at Chicagoland. And then maybe every year you just do different track rentals. Say, hey, we're going to come to this track for 1 year. And maybe you build demand that way where it's the scarcity, right?
Yes, I do think there is a model that makes sense to where there are certain tracks and maybe just ovals that you don't go to every year.
Where it's a rotation.
You go every 2 years or something like that because it makes the event more attractive to people. If Iowa had one race every 2 years and it was a night race, maybe you do have more people coming there. But maybe you rent Iowa in 2026 and next year in 2027 you rent Homestead, and 2028 you rent Chicagoland, and 2029 you rent New Hampshire, something like that. Or maybe 2 a year. I don't know. But I do think there's something to be said about a model where you don't go to every track every year.
On TV ratings, you talked about your stat about 5 of the 8 had higher ratings last year on NBC. A couple thoughts here. OBX Jody said, Thought 1, IndyCar is really cheap sports content for Fox by price. It's a minimal investment. That's true. Thought 2, races at venues called Road America and Mid-Ohio don't exactly get national viewer interest. These races are well attended, but they're tough TV sales to a more casual fan. That's true.
Even just saying Mid-Ohio puts 95% of the citizenry to sleep. It just does not sound interesting.
Because of the word mid?
Well, mid and Ohio. Like, what's exciting about the middle of Ohio?
Yeah, I mean, get it. Mid and Ohio, two very Gen Z terms.
Yeah, it's true. Mid.
You combine them together.
Yeah,
but you would think it'd make it more popular.
Yeah,
And then Marbles Offline said, that, hey, that's true, but the increase in the IndyCar on Fox rating in itself more than offsets the differences you were showing. That said, the 5 losses you show are disappointment and concern. And some other thoughts on tracks and tickets and all of that. Jody goes and say, when you only have 17 races, 2 of the other races are in Newton, Iowa. Site selection is going to be a bigger deal. F1 has more races, thus their percentage of Nowheresville races is drastically different. I'll watch a race on TV at Mid-Ohio, but more casual fans may not. And then on the talk of ovals, Mallard _73, because big ovals get that TV reaction of, holy crap, look how close they are and how fast they're going. Most road and street courses don't. We need something that makes the road course races more interesting. The hybrid did nothing. I feel like I don't blame the hybrid so much. I blame the hybrid more for the ovals than the road and street courses.
Yeah, it's easy to blame the hybrid. And then, you can't blame it for everything.
Another thought from Matt Stogler, and we'll wrap it up here for the mailbag. How do we rationalize a subpar TV number contrasted against what seemed to be a huge in-person crowd at the track? What's the growth metric? And I think that is the battle for IndyCar in general.
Well, that's the chicken or the egg thing, right? You can't have a series without successful events. But successful events and dismal TV ratings don't add up either. You need to have both. But you can't have, first and foremost, you need successful events to even have a season. And so I think the last I think we're at a point, despite the woes at certain places, that we're at a place where the majority of the tracks on the schedule are pretty successful events. There's just a couple that, and it fluctuates. A couple years ago, we wouldn't have said Iowa, but now we're saying Iowa, right? So a couple years ago, we would have said Gateway. Last year, we would have said Gateway. Now, after this year, we're feeling pretty good about Gateway. So it changes. Toronto's always up there just because of the logistics and everything. So you just never know. But by and large, IndyCar has a lot of really successful events that are on firm ground. But there's always that couple, because people always talk, well, we got to get to 20 events. I think IndyCar would love to get to 17 solid firm events that they have no worries about before they start adding. And it just it's a constantly moving metric due to a variety of factors.
With that, let's move on to news and notes, and we'll try to rattle through things.
Did you ever do Rate the Race?
We did not. You're right. We did not. How would you rate Mid-Ohio?
I had it a 6.
Interesting. I had a 7.5.
Really?
Yeah.
I think
just enough at the beginning and the end to keep me interested. You had the strategy run by Dixon. Listeners said 7.15.
So you're on the higher end. I'm in the lower end. I just felt the middle.
Yeah, the middle portion, there wasn't a lot going on.
60 laps, there was not much going on. But
I thought you at least had intrigue at the beginning and end to maybe not make up for it, but at least improve the number just a bit.
I mean, your first impression and last impression
were positive.
Of anything are important. And yeah, you had that at Mid-Ohio.
All right, we talked at length about Iowa Speedway and changes for the weekend, which they are making to try to improve the product. This weekend we will see aero changes, downforce, moved from the underwing to the rear wing to add drag. Hopes trailing car can get closer. Engine boost level, same as Indy. New right front construction than the tire test 2 weeks ago for tires. Also, Will Power said they added so much downforce that the track was stuck. So he said, I'm like, man, I don't know if I could actually continue. It was painful. So we'll see how they work it out, but hopefully they'll make it happen. Taking a look at Iowa in terms of a preview of the schedule and Friday. So we're recording this Friday morning, but the schedule for Friday, weather dependent, but practice 1, FS2, 3:30 Eastern. Again, FS2 on Saturday, qualifying noon Eastern on FS1, race 1, 5 Eastern on Fox. Race 2 on Sunday, 1 Eastern. Coverage starts on Fox as well. Obviously, all the other outlets, IndyCar Live, SiriusXM 218, IndyCar Radio as well. Green flag for Iowa Race 1, 4:20 Eastern, 275 laps for the Sync 275. And then race 2, which is the farm to finish 275 with 275 laps, 1:20 Eastern, 12:20 Central Time. Who's your picks to win this weekend?
I'm going Pato O'Ward to win one race.
As am I.
And Joseph Newgarden to win the other race.
Wow. I'm going Pato O'Ward to win one race, and give me Kyle Kirkwood to win another.
I still feel that Penske's got to win a race at some point, but we're running out of races.
We are. I've given up on them, on picking them. Some stats from Chad 200. You want to guess total laps led? How many Penske has led in the last 11 Iowa races? It is astounding.
Last 11 Iowa races,
Yes.
let's say 275 laps, 250 laps per. I'll say 1,300 laps.
You're halfway there. 2,416 Team Penske's led.
That's not
Ganassi and McLaren have led 154 each. Andretti 97, Rahal 65, ECR 38. Penske's won 9 of the last 11 races, 9 poles. And another stat to keep in mind, these are his 3 key stats: 21 races at Iowa. Race has only been won from pole position once. Keep that in mind. Dixon, 3 poles, 131 laps led, 16 finishes inside the top 6, never won. And Joseph Newgarden, who's done quite well, second, first, sixth, fourth, first, fifth, first, 24th, first, third, and 7th. Last 14 starts, 1,847 laps led. So Joseph Newgarden alone has obviously dominated the lap counter at Iowa.
And with his struggles this year, we have to remember that he was running first at Gateway before crashing into Louis Foster,
Yes.
which was not his fault. So the one
Correct.
short oval that we've had so far, Joseph Newgarden was in position to contend for the win, if not win the race, and something beyond his control happened. So I feel like now plenty of stuff has gone against Team Penske. Plenty of stuff has been Penske's problem this year, but I don't think short oval pace is one of those problems. And I think Joseph Newgarden wins one of the races this week. But, it's a wild year for Team Penske. So
Yes.
we'll see.
It is. Speaking of Team Penske, as we continue on news and notes, Jonathan Duagood has been named the president of Team Penske. Competition director is now Travis Law. So those are some of the changes. No changes for their NASCAR side, but that's overall. We knew they'd have to make some changes.
I mean, are they really going to run both the IMSA and IndyCar programs? You think this is just something to the end of the year?
I think this is permanent.
I mean, maybe they give up the IMSA responsibility for next year. I mean, it just seems like a lot to handle, right?
That is true. Nathan Brown had this. We talked about Alex Palou, and there was interest at Williams Racing, but Nathan Brown said Palou is on the short list for the ride that went to Carlos Sainz. Palou would have been too expensive and inexperienced. That's what Williams Racing boss James Voles said. Alex Palou agrees. Continuing on, Sam Bashusin with this, that Pato O'Ward firmly in the top 10 of driver shirts at NASCAR in Chicago. Thought that was interesting.
They're selling Pato O'Ward shirts at Chicago, huh?
Well, no, just in the crowd.
Oh, in the crowd. I gotcha.
Yeah.
Nice.
I thought that was fascinating. Update on the 2026 schedule, article on racer.com. Not a whole lot to take away from this overall. It's more that they want to be at all 3, Laguna Seca, Portland, and Toronto, that their intent is to be at all 3. And Doug Bull said, I'd be really surprised if we weren't in all 3 of those markets. That's a good sign for those returning. Trip to Mexico, highly anticipated. And then Iowa Speedway essentially comes down to how this weekend goes. Don't feel good about that. They're targeting 17 races. Bull said, I can see where it ends up at 18. I could also see where it ends up at 16, but the plan is to be at 17.
A lot to be determined based on those comments.
Yes.
Because before NASCAR raced at Monterey, felt like, okay, as soon as, because we were told they didn't want IndyCar and Monterey to announce that race until after
Mexico City.
Mexico City until that Cup race was over.
And we thought it was imminent.
Right. Well,
It's not.
several weeks since that race, and we still don't have anything. So
Almost a month.
yeah, I don't know what they're waiting for.
Also on schedule news, racer.com mailbag. So we knew that IndyCar was going after Toyota for a third OEM. Came close a few years ago, as Marshall Pruitt points out. But another thing, which we know Toyota is going to be a sponsor for the Arlington race. Toyota North America headquarters moved to Plano, which is near Arlington. It's in the DFW Metroplex. But Pruitt goes on to say, but if bringing Toyota back to the series via event sponsorship, and I've heard there might be another race where the brand could be involved next year, is the first step to getting an engine supply agreement back on the table. It would be great for all involved. But I thought, that's interesting. Wonder what track that would be. We don't have the time to do the research on where Toyota factories, located, and what would be a fit, because who knows, right? But I just thought that was a fascinating thing.
Yes, a little bit.
Because it's probably not Long Beach.
I was going to say, back to the Toyota Grand Prix of
Probably not Long
no?
Beach. Could it be
St. Pete?
Barber? There's one in Alabama. Could it be a return to Kentucky Speedway? There's one in Kentucky, Missouri, obviously Texas, so on and so forth. But I thought that was an interesting tidbit in the mailbag. And there was, one other interesting mailbag tidbit, and I'm forgetting what it was.
Well, I mean, coming back to the Toyota thing, it doesn't necessarily mean that Toyota is any more interested in joining IndyCar as an OEM, but it's not bad news.
Well, and
right?
the fact that Toyota Gazoo Racing's been running ads on IndyCar broadcasts for
which
a month,
I haven't noticed that. You pointed that out to me.
That's been interesting as well.
Yeah, so I'm going back in our detailed conversations. To see.
Linus Lundqvist is going to every IndyCar race that's within driving range from Indianapolis, has his helmet ready to go, obviously working out the lawsuit details with Chip Ganassi Racing as well. Doug Bull says IndyCar will stick with its championship format rather than a playoff system. Revival of an all-star race concept could be a future possibility, that per racer.com. I would love an all-star type race. That would be nice.
I mean, I have no problem with having an all-star race at Thermal. We've had it before.
True.
Just make it a $5 million pot and have that. The other piece of information in the mailbag was the mention that Ozarks International Raceway had reached out to IndyCar to gauge interest in hosting a race. That is the new track that opened in 2022, road course in Gravois Mills, Missouri. Does not yet have the infrastructure to host an IndyCar race. They've done USF Juniors there. Formula Atlantics, GT4 is raced there too. It is a 3.97 mile road course, but as of right now, does not have the infrastructure to host.
A track that I heard this rumor very recently that is very much on the radar of IndyCar is Flat Rock Motorsports Park, which is 50 miles west of Knoxville, Tennessee. Very much on the radar for IndyCar in a future race.
But that is correct me if I'm wrong, similar to Thermal in that it's like a motor club?
Yeah, I mean, this is different. It's not the exact way, but they have, a members club circuit and then a 2.67 mile FIA grade 2 certified track, which is more than capable of hosting IndyCar.
Correct. I just don't know if it has the grandstands and stuff. Just looking at pictures, there's just homes around it.
Being built, and look, this is the rumor I heard that this is on the radar, apparently, for a future race for IndyCar in the near future.
I would just hope it's a little more inclusive than Thermal is, because that has not gotten a good reception from the majority of fans.
No, it has not.
To say the least.
Anything else that we missed?
It's been a busy week for IndyCar, and whether it's actual news or drama that we create online, it's been very busy. So we're hoping for the best this weekend heading to Iowa, but we're planning for the worst.
Here's the thing. If race 1 can deliver, will that come with a boost in ticket sales to make race 2 a little bit better attended.
I think it'd be very difficult because you're not close to a major metropolitan area. I don't know if, all of a sudden thousands of people from Des Moines are going to buy race tickets to go to race 2. If race 1's decent, I don't know.
That's what you hope for.
You hope. I just, I don't know. I'm mentally preparing for a very tough weekend for IndyCar. I hope I'm wrong.
One other note, actually, I did forget. J.R. Hildebrand, who's stepping down from doing the race podcast with Jack Binion, said, "I'll forever remain engaged with the world of IndyCar." Also added that he's working on a 500 deal. So keep that in mind for the future.
Okay.
And it was Alex Palou Day in Zionsville, Indiana, which is a suburb in Indianapolis, earlier this week. They had a proclamation. They had Palou signing autographs, big crowd on hand, so pretty cool deal for Palou. All right, tweets of the week. And we start with Nathan Brown. How are things going this morning on the warm-up show? This is for Mid-Ohio Weekend. Will Buxton to Cletus, who's the Fox Sports mascot. Can you give us a Joseph Newgarden impression? And Cletus walked off the set. That was really funny.
Oh, brilliant.
Chip Ganassi Racing quote tweeted their own tweet of Scott Dixon, P1, winning at Mid-Ohio with the return of the king. From Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Thought that was great. Connor Daly, this clown literally drove himself off track trying to make sure he wrecked me. Santino Ferrucci, brilliant as always. Thought that was great as well. And then James Hinchcliffe, this is really long, so bear with me. But his travel issues getting to Iowa were quite comical. He said, "Remember that time my connection was delayed, but then they boarded the whole plane, but then they kicked us all off because they needed to find a new plane. And then they found a new plane, but it was a bigger plane, which needs an extra flight attendant. So then we got another flight attendant, and then we boarded the new plane. And once we boarded, the captain said there was a maintenance issue. So then we sat on the plane, and maintenance tried to fix the problem. And then the problem was fixed, and we started taxiing 7 hours later than we were supposed to. But then we just stopped taxiing and sat there for an unknown reason with no information. And why haven't we taken off yet?" That is fun. Hopefully he made it to Iowa.
I was going to say, hopefully he's there by now.
But I just thought that was pretty funny.
Wild.
Flight issues are funny as long as people aren't screaming at gate agents and stuff.
Right?
You're still flying 500 miles per hour through the air in a metal tube. I always think it's just the engineering on that alone is just incredible.
And if you start thinking about it, it really kind of concerns you.
Yes, but also it's amazing.
Yes.
It's amazing achievement. So I can't get too in the weeds, but if you're jokingly going at it that way, I'm okay with it. And
it's always more comical when it's not happening to you.
Always the case. All right, Random split error driver of the week.
All right, I had to do a considerable search as we continue to get to the bottom of the well here with the random split error driver of the week. We're going with Tonis Kazmits.
Hey, I've heard of him.
Yeah, how about
he
that?
was in the news recently.
Oh, really? Well,
yes.
I have to get to that. But Tonis Kazmits, a native of Estonia, raced in the Champ Car World Series in 2006 after a couple years in... Actually, this is interesting. He did Champ Car with 5 races in 2006 with Rocket Sports Racing. And then in 2010 and 2011 did a couple Indy Lights races. A little weird. But in his 5 races for Rocket Sports Racing, his best finish was 11th at Edmonton, followed by a 12th at Cleveland. Overall that season, finished 19th in points. This is interesting. To participate in Champ Car in 2006, he had to gather funds for a quarter of the participation costs. He wanted to do a full season of Champ Car in 2007, and in the future, he wants to own a successful team a la Newman Haas and Forsyth, don't we all? However, he has not appeared in a Champ Car or IndyCar race since 2006. What he has been doing, however, is racing at Road America in the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, including last year, finishing 8th at Road America. The last 3 years, he's done those Road America races, endurance races with WeatherTech Sports Cars. He's also had races at Watkins Glen and Sebring the last couple years. He's done IMSA prototypes. He won the IMSA Prototype Challenge in 2022. And he's also done some Grand Am road events. He raced in the 2013 Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona. He currently lives in Illinois with his son and daughter. But you also said he's been in the news recently.
Yeah, I saw a post on the socials from Anthony Florio, who covers IMSA, but Tonis Kasmets and Matthew Brabham, former IndyCar race starter, testing their Oreca chassis at Autobahn. Both their names on the car, LMP2 looks like.
Okay.
But I thought that was fascinating. This was just a couple days ago, so I don't know what that means moving forward. I don't follow IMSA enough to have a clue, but I thought it was fascinating nonetheless.
So still racing, mainly in sports cars, and developing stuff with Matthew Brabham as well. But 5 races in the 2006 Champ Car World Series season with Rocket Sports Racing, which was a motor racing team based in East Lansing. Did not know where that was.
Didn't know they were based there.
Yes.
That's Paul Gentilozzi, right?
Yes.
You look his name up if you need some interesting reading. We'll leave it at that.
He sounds like a guy that fits the things he was involved in. That's basically what to say. But going back to Tonis Kasmets, this week's random split era driver of the week.
All right, that wraps up a marathon episode for New Track Record. For Justin Kinney, I am Caleb Hatch. We'll be back next week to recap, hopefully, an exciting doubleheader, the Sukup doubleheader at Iowa Speedway here on New Track Record Podcast.